Today I'm going to show you guys everything that you need to know to get started making trap beats. When you're making a trap beat, a good place to start is to think about the main centerpiece of the beat, whether that be the melody that you come up with or the loop that you want to use. And by the way, if you want to follow along with what I'm doing step by step, I have included the project file to this beat in the description box below. Now, if you're someone that likes the idea of writing your own music and building everything from scratch, what you can do is start off by loading a synth that's in FL Studio or a third-party plugin. A stock plugin that comes with FL Studio that's actually pretty good for making trap is Mini Synth. It's pretty intuitive and simple to use, and you can create some pretty good sounds using it. But if you're not a fan of the stock plugins that come with FL Studio, because most of them are geared towards electronic music, down below is a list of some pretty good affordable plugins for trappier sounds. So you can start off by choosing one of the presets down here. Mini Synth comes with 91 presets that we can choose from. It didn't sound all that great right now, but one of the good things about Mini Synth is you can easily go into some of these other tabs and quickly make some adjustments to improve this sound pretty easily. The filter tab here as well as the effects tab are especially helpful if you want to change your sound. Now at this point I'm going to go ahead and come up with the main loop of my beat by going into my synth here, right clicking into the piano roll. And as well, I do need to set the BPM of my beat here. I'm going to choose a BPM that falls in the typical range of a trap beat. And going down this style of beat making where you want to make everything yourself does call for music theory knowledge. The more you know, the more complex you can make your beat. But honestly, you can make some pretty good beats even if you don't have any music theory knowledge, so don't feel like you're going to be held back and you can't make anything good if you don't have a background in music theory. And as well, if this is something that you struggle with, there's a tool right inside FL Studio that can help you out in this situation, and it's called Riff Machine. All you got to do is hit Alt and E on your keyboard and this menu comes up. And you can go through these different options here to create a melody or a chord progression pretty easily. I did a video a while back on how to use Riff Machine, so check that out if this is something that interests you. But for now, I'm just going to piece together a simple loop that sounds good to me and just do this by ear. You'll notice here I have a pretty simple, straightforward repeating pattern, which is a staple of trap. So again, don't feel like you have to come up with something huge and elaborate in order to make a trap beat. Next up, I'm going to come up with the drums and the 808 pattern. In terms of where you'd find these types of sounds, you can find free drum and 808 packs all over the place. I have my free drum kit available in the description box below, but you can also find free drum kits on Reddit, or if you just go to Google and type in free drum kits, I'm sure you can find something there. First, I'm going to come up with the hi-hat pattern. So I'm going to start off by filling every other square here in the piano roll. And once again, highlighting everything by holding down Control and then hitting Control B will make this process a bit quicker. Now, once again, I say this pretty often, I always recommend using the piano roll instead of the step sequencer here. And the reason why is because you can more easily make your hi-hat pattern a lot more interesting by using some of the tools in the FL Studio piano roll. For example, I can use the chopper to create some hi-hat rolls by hitting Alt and U. I can also play around with the pitch of notes a lot more easily in the piano roll, and I can more easily add in ghost notes and play around with the velocity of these notes as well, and also play around with different rhythms more easily from here as well. All of these tips and tricks that I just showed you guys, I covered more deeply in a hi-hat tutorial that I made a little while ago, so check that out if you're interested in that. But so far it sounds like I have a nice hi-hat pattern here. Next up, I'm going to move on to the kick and the snare or clap pattern. When it comes to deciding whether you want to use a snare or a clap in your trap beat, a good approach is to think about how dense you want your sound to be. If you want something to take up a little bit more room and sound a little bit more dense in the beat, choosing a snare is a good option. Or if you want something that's a little bit softer and a little bit less present, a clap might be a better option. As always, I recommend starting with the bass framework of your beat by putting a kick on the 1. And then putting your snare on the 3 and the 7. And in case you don't know what I mean by the 3 and the 7, you guys can see in FL Studio in the piano roll, we have these darker lines right here. What you can do is just count these until you get to 3 and 7. So this first one here would be 1, then 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And from here, I'm going to fill out the pattern a little bit more by adding some more kicks and snares to make it a little bit more dense. And if you feel like your drums aren't quite thick enough and they don't feel like they're present in the beat, layering is always a good option. That can help your drums sound a little bit more dense as we're layering more sounds on top to fill up more of the frequency spectrum that these sounds take up. Now next up, the 808. Now if you download your 808s, most likely it's going to be labeled to tell you what key each of these 808s are, and if it's unlabeled, most likely it's going to be a C. So if you find an 808 that you like, there are a few things that you want to do right off the bat. Number one is to click the 808. You want to go into this tab here, the envelope and instrument settings, and you're going to see this big piano roll down here. Now you want to look at what the note of the 808 is. In this example, we have a C sharp right up here. So I'm going to go into the piano roll here and right click the C sharp. Now your 808 is going to be mapped to the traditional keyboard layout, and we're going to actually be playing the right notes whenever we play in the piano roll here. And the second thing that you want to make sure you do is right click on the 808 and hit cut itself. This will help ensure that the 808s won't overlap. And now at this point, I'm going to come up with the 808 pattern for the beat. Again, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. And again, if this is something that gives you trouble coming up with 808 patterns, especially more complex ones, I made a video a while back on 808 patterns that you can check out after this video is done. The link's right above my head. To make this 808 pattern slightly more interesting, I'm going to go ahead and add some slides in by hitting this button up here. As well, a very helpful tool to have your 808s sound a lot better and a lot more present in the beat is to add distortion on top of them. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to Mixer Insert 1. And a pretty good distortion tool that comes stock with FL Studio is called Destructor. All you have to do is choose from the distortion presets in this drop-down menu here. And playing around with these dials to have your 808 sound a little bit better is really easy. And also EQing your 808 might be a good idea as well. Here, what I'm doing is getting rid of some of the frequencies that are really low that most speakers can't even produce, and I'm boosting the frequencies that I do like in the 808. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to EQ that main synth that I came up with, again, just to clean it up a tiny bit. Again, getting rid of the frequencies that I don't need and boosting the ones that I do. Alright, so it sounds like the main framework of my beat is complete here. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and start sequencing the beat out. If I go up into the pattern section up here, and click split by channel. This will take all of my sounds here and split them up into individual patterns. And from here, I'll go into the playlist and I'll drag these all in. And this just makes things a little bit easier when you're sequencing out your beat. Again, I'm going to hit Control B to duplicate this out. And for the hook, I don't really have anything made. I don't want to play the exact same loop over and over again, so I'm going to create some variation here. I'm going to go ahead and click this button here. Make this unique, and I can double click this pattern right here and easily make some variation. And I also think it'd be a good idea to add a few more layers into the hook section to make things a little bit more dense as well. So what I did here was I went into my main loop and I pitched this up an octave. Originally it was down here, but I pitched it up here by holding down Control and pressing up on my keyboard. I also created this new pattern here where I added this synth from Harmer. This is a preset called Chorus Ensemble. And I also use this preset from Citrus here called Feedback Saw. And I do want to point out I did use some effects on top of these sounds in order to make them sound a little bit better. Without any effects, this is how they would sound. Some typical effects that you should get comfortable using in order to improve your sounds are things like reverbs, delays, as well as filters and EQs. So at this point, I have a verse section built out as well as a hook section. I can go ahead and structure my beat out completely. Now, so far, I've shown you guys how to make a beat if you want to create every single component yourself. But what you could also do is use a loop, which is a great way to make a trap beat. It can easily provide you with a lot more of a rich texture depending on the quality of the loop that you use. It can also help you start off an idea a lot more easily as well. So what you can easily do is drag your loop right into the channel rack right here. One quick tip that I want to show you guys, if you add Wave Candy, which is a stock FL plugin, on top of your loop, you can easily see what notes belong in the sample. So this is going to make it a lot easier to play my own 808 pattern as well as instrumentation on top, since I know every single note that belongs in this loop. I did a full breakdown on how to use this thing in my video right above my head, so check that out once this video is done. Now, one of the problems that you might run into if you add your loop directly into the channel rack is it's not going to sync up with the other elements in your beat if the BPM is different. So you guys can hear nothing's lining up. So to fix this, what you're gonna do is go into the loop here, right click on the time knob and select auto detect. And from here, you choose the range that your loop falls into. So this loop here, it's 148 BPM. So I'm just gonna choose the range 100 to 200. Now let's take a listen. So it fits perfectly, and if you still want to maintain the exact same pitch as the original, you'll go back in, change the mode to auto. And there you go. But what might be an overall better way of doing this is to go into the playlist and dragging the loop directly in here. And what you want to do is make sure that stretch is enabled when you're under the audio tab right here. And you can easily stretch your loop out to match however long your pattern is. And again, when you do this, you want to make sure to go into your loop and make sure the auto mode is selected here. Now, one of the difficulties if you're going down this road of using loops is very difficult to find accompanying sounds or textures that's going to work with the loop. It can also be very difficult to structure out your beat as well and keep things interesting just because you're stuck with the loop as it is. You can't separate the sounds out and create variation. And if this is something that you struggle with, where you use loops and you struggle with keeping your beat interesting, I did a video a while back where I shared 7 different ideas that you can use on top of your loops to create some variation in your beat, so check that out right above my head. And so those are 2 approaches that you can use when you're making trap beats. If you guys have found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. All the links that I mentioned during this video are in the description box below. If you struggle with any of the topics that I mentioned, I really think those videos can really help. The link to my free drum kit is also available in the description box below, as well as a link to my Discord if you're interested in having your beats reviewed live. And I will see you guys next time.